Hello everyone, how are you guys doing on this pre-halving day? We got a lot to cover today. We do have a lot of interesting things to come, and today we have two very special guests to quickly talk with us and review a couple of the potential takeaways and insights from the Bitcoin halving, its impacts, how is it going to go, like how many people it will actually impact. So it will be a very interesting conversation. We are going to unpack a little bit of the mining impacts. We are also going to talk about price action and all that. Like you guys were expecting this dump, and I see that we already have a pump here with us today. So I think without further ado, without spending any time, because I do know that we have a short time of Anthony here with us today. Anthony, welcome to CMC Live. First and foremost, it's a pleasure to have you here. I do know that a lot of people that are here, 99.9% already do know you and will. So welcome to CMC. Pleasure to have you here to talk some Bitcoin halving. I don't know if only for me. I don't think I can actually hear you, Pump. So potentially some issues with the mic or something. I can tell that you haven't muted yourself. So let me just do a quick mic check with Will as well. Will, same as I said for Pump. Huge pleasure to have you here. Welcome to Sims Live. Let's do this quick mic check just to make sure that everything is in sync.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah, can hear Will absolutely perfect, loud and clear. Just like Anthony, still cannot hear you. We'll get back to you soon. But Will, first and foremost, like halving is approaching. It's very, very close. I think that on the CoinMarketCap website, you guys also have a Bitcoin halving countdown. Less than 10 hours to go. We are now 9 hours, 59 minutes, and a couple of seconds away of the halving. What are your initial, takeaways from what's coming up, and how should people, expect the price action, for example, to move after the halving takes place?
Yeah, I think first of all, the halving is a great reminder amidst some of the macro uncertainty that we've seen and kind of craziness with monetary policy over the last 2 years. That Bitcoin as a decentralized open source computing network, has a programmatic supply cap and also monetary policy that cuts the supply issuance in half every 4 years is quite a stark contrast to kind of what we have in the traditional world where people are basically speculating on what this kind of small group of individuals is going to do and how that may influence the entire global economy. So fundamentally, I think the halving is kind of a good reminder of this dynamic of why Bitcoin's monetary policy is superior to that of the traditional financial system. I think also another really interesting kind of selling point of this specific halving is that Bitcoin's stock to flow ratio will surpass that of gold for the first time ever. So Bitcoin is quantifiably more scarce than gold for the first time ever. So I just think, in terms of the backdrop of all the reasons why you want to allocate to Bitcoin or gold in terms of kind of the debt situation, etc., and monetary debasement, I think this kind of is a reinforcement of the fact that Bitcoin is superior to gold in many ways, and holds a lot of the traits that gold does, but is even better on all of those things. To turn it over, I guess, to price action, I don't have a super strong opinion locally here. I went on a podcast with Arthur Hayes last week and said that I thought we would probably correct down into the halving. We got this big flush last week. At this point, I think we already probably had the majority of the move that I thought maybe we'd see and kind of anticipated into the halving. Historically, what we've seen is obviously Bitcoin trade up in the months following as the issuance gets cut in half. I don't know if that can be attributed necessarily specifically to the halving itself and kind of the decline in supply issuance. What does that have to do with the liquidity cycle or just kind of behavioral dynamics in the market? I think it's a bit more nuanced than halving just makes the number go up, but it's definitely a net positive thing. But I think there's a lot of other dynamics that are probably more important to be watching for kind of the supply and demand from a market structure standpoint for Bitcoin. But again, it's a positive thing and it's exciting to see.
100% agree with you. And one interesting thing that you mentioned is just like what's happening recently. Like in these past weeks, I think the last weekend we have seen like, I mean, some panic sell all across the board, of course, because of a lot of geopolitical reasons, etc. But I mean, there is even a post here pinned from Checkmate, which, by the way, is, if I'm not mistaken, the lead on-chain analyst for Glassnode, and he talks about just like how the markets actually needed to shake out weaker hands before we actually move higher. Do you think that is kind of like something you were expecting? Because on previous cycles, actually, if I'm not mistaken as well, correct me if I'm wrong, but we actually broke all-time high prices after halving only. This time we did it a little bit before. Of course, we have ETFs, we have all that. So do you believe that we'll still have other shakeouts potentially? We are even like potentially going even lower than those price levels before actually jumping into a parabolic, I mean, run or something like that? Or do you feel like maybe we are closer to the top than we have imagined before?
Yeah, I have no idea to be honest. I don't really trade the short term time frames anymore. I do think Bitcoin's probably like mid cycle, like maybe inning 5 or 6 of this kind of current cycle that we're in. Both looking at some of the kind of Bitcoin native stuff as well as the kind of broader macro liquidity cycle. So um, yeah, I don't really have a super strong opinion locally here. I mean, we flushed out a lot of the open interest. Funding rates are cooled off across the board. A lot of alts kind of wiped out like 60 to 70% of open interest across the board. So, I think the market's in a healthier position than it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. Of course, there's a lot of kind of looming geopolitical uncertainty. I don't really have a super strong opinion over the next couple weeks anymore. I thought we would get this kind of correction to the halving, which we've seen. Suspect that we probably have seen the majority of it, but I think where I have kind of higher conviction is over the coming 8 to 12 months. I just think that the fiscal situation in the United States and debt to GDP being at 120% with interest rates at 5, I just think you've got so much money that's coming into markets. Um, Basically $1 trillion that's set to come into the market through interest payments throughout this year, which is greater than the defense budget of the United States. Next year, that'll be on track to be about 1.6 trillion. So, um, you know, I think that's kind of the more important thing to look at when you kind of zoom out and look at the big picture. And again, I think the halving is kind of a good reinforcement of kind of the reason why we hold Bitcoin as a scarce asset. Basically because of the debt situation, you have monetary debasement that's almost programmed. While meanwhile, Bitcoin the issuance continues to tighten, and of course we have a fixed supply cap on Bitcoin.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that first, I'd like to highlight something that you mentioned, that you have absolutely no idea how price action is going to play out. And I think that's the big takeaway for people here. No one knows exactly how this is going to happen, but we have a lot of like indicators out there. You mentioned, for example, like the state of the economy in the US, for example. There is a pinned post from Watch Your Guru talking exactly about that, how the Federal Reserve actually officially said that it could wait until 2025 to lower interest rates. So that's something that we definitely need to keep an eye on, because we do know how those markets affect Bitcoin and crypto as in general, and we do know like how strong the U.S. markets are, just like we have recently seen the all things with ETF, etc. So like that just shows how strong it is. But going back to the mining, I think mining is also something that is moving towards the U.S. little by little after the China restrictions, etc. Like, how do you think that actually, like, if any, affects like mining impacts? We have seen like reports from Cointelegraph talking about the price of mining one Bitcoin in average, of course, but like going all the way up to $80K per Bitcoin. So how do you see that potentially impacting the mining activity? Do you feel like mining activity is going to grow? Maybe potentially some of the players that are in the industry will not be around in years from now. Like, I mean, what are your takeaways on all of that and all this quote unquote meme culture to get the Bitcoin halving to actually happen on April 20 or 420, as you guys call on the US? Will, in case you're speaking, I don't think we can hear you now. So, like, just double checking the mic. I do see that you are unmuted but unable to listen to you. So that may be an issue. Not quite sure if your mic has some issue or something like that. Please, just ping me and let me know if we're working with any. And guys, also let me know in the chart if you can like hear Will. I think Will is dropping off and on again, probably because of some connection issues. Hey, Will, see you back. Let's try to do the mic check again. I think I'm able to hear something, Will, but not necessarily
Hey,
you.
can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
now I can hear you perfectly.
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
But as I was saying, like we didn't hear anything that you said. Just like in terms of mining impacts, Bitcoin meme culture, and I think that's also what's potentially driving all this rooms thing. You know, like all these build things on Bitcoin type of thing. We see ordinals, we see the wizards, we see a lot of things. Like, do you think that any of the mining of this builder activity will change after the halving? How do you expect the halving to affect both of them?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the impact in terms of miner revenues getting cut in half has kind of gotten priced through for miners. Or at least I think a lot of it has been at this point because the market is forward looking. So I think the market is the most pre-telegraphed event in the history of mankind, with the Bitcoin halving, right? Because it's programmed into open source code. So it's pre-telegraphed, but the fact that the revenues are going to get cut in half. Miners have been trading around 35K BTC equivalent from last year. So I think a lot of that stuff has gotten priced through for the miners. The meme coin stuff, I'll call it, on Bitcoin in terms of the BRC20 tokens or the runes. I haven't been keeping up with runes as much, but that stuff, some of the L2s that are launching on Bitcoin, I don't have a position in any of them. For it's been pretty big. A lot of people have been getting excited about that. There's Lightning, of course. So I think these things are going to drive activity on top of the Bitcoin base layer, and that'll drive up fees and kind of subsidize some of that revenue that miners are losing in terms of the halving getting dropped. The other piece is that historically what we've seen is Bitcoin's price has risen after the halving, and so that should offset a lot of the drop in the revenues for the miners. So I guess that's kind of just my thoughts there in terms of how it's going to impact the miners going forward.
In one question, Will, do you feel like, for example, like we have seen back in the day, like when DeFi first started, DeFi Summer, etc., like a lot of activity on Ethereum, then it kind of like shifted to many different layer ones, and now we're seeing, of course, layer twos, not just with meme coins, but some DeFi activity as well, restaking, etc. Like, do you think all this Bitcoin mania, I would call, like in terms of like builders, as you mentioned, like L2, Ordinals, etc., do you think that this is a long-term type of thing? Because I do remember when Ordinals first came up, a lot of people said, nah, this is just like something that like 30 days from now, 1 month from now, probably it will not be here anymore. It's all just like subscriptions. It's something that people are trying to do, etc. But like, yeah, whatever. It's just a hype type of thing. Seems like it has been lasted longer than a lot of people expected. Do you feel like this is something that will be kind of the phase of this bull cycle, or anything or anything different? Like, what do you think about that? Yeah, I've seen we have a couple of technical issues. Guys, let me know if you can hear me also, like here on the chat. Let me know if you can hear me well, and what you guys think of Bitcoin as well, if this is actually going to be something that will stick for longer, if all this let's say Bitcoin ordinals, L2, BVM and all that talk, this is something that will still be along for a long time frame, or is something that will end up dying? And do you guys think this will be kind of like the biggest thing of this bull cycle, or do you think this will be probably just one of the many narratives that will go on in this cycle? I see like a lot of people just like mention that they can hear me, good sound, loud and clear, so that's good to know. Thanks for sharing all that information with me. Yeah, and Ordinals versus runes, I see a lot of people commenting on this as well. And I think the main analysis is what Will basically has shared here, which is we don't know exactly what price action is going to take place, but we do know that usually story tells us, like if you go back and look at the other halvings, etc., like it shows us that we will potentially have like higher and higher price action coming up. So we'll just check in. Can you hear me now? Just like to double check and make sure that you can.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you still, no problem. I think something with my voice problem or my mic. But nevertheless, what I was asking you is about this hype, this trend on Bitcoin, like these builders, L2, runes, ordinals, etc. At the beginning, a lot of people thought it was something that will go away very, fast. It's here, it's still here. Do you think it's going to be one of the faces of this bull run?
Yeah, I think my kind of going thesis since last year when you had the initial kind of mini bubble around the ordinals was that, especially after you saw the second one, I think that ordinals will probably go on a NFT 2021 style run at some point. At least a couple of the projects will. I think inscriptions are pretty exciting because when you think about, fundamentally the idea that you can inscribe something, into a blockchain forever, that's pretty exciting, right? If you think back to get a little philosophical with it, history is written by the victors, right? So if you go back in history, a lot of things are probably maybe a bit misconstrued in terms of the actual way that things transpired. So I think stuff, basically inscribed into an immutable ledger like Bitcoin. I think that's pretty interesting from kind of that philosophical perspective. But yeah, I think people speculate on this stuff. I think there'll be a bunch of these projects that, by the way, the Bitcoin ordinals are natively inscribed into the blockchain as opposed to ETH NFTs, which aren't. So yeah, I expect that the wealth effect from Bitcoin will probably trickle over into these things, and as Bitcoin trades higher, people are going to look for ways that they can kind of rotate some of that money out and speculate on stuff. And if you've got ordinals on top of Bitcoin, that's kind of the lowest friction way for people to rotate out and speculate.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like this is just one more narrative to add on top of everything that we were already talking about. And I think that last but not least, I would like to ask you a question. Bitcoin, of course, is the king crypto. So we have a lot of people have this as their entry door for like the crypto market. I would like to ask you, like, how long have you been in the market? Because you seem like someone that has a lot of experience, that knows a lot, not just about Bitcoin, of course, but like I want to ask you about that. And also, besides Bitcoin, let's put the halving aside a little bit and ask you about other narratives that you think that can potentially shift this bull run. Is it related to the bean L2s, RWAs, or maybe AI? What do you have in mind that can potentially be the core things that will be part of this next run? Will, can you hear me? I don't know if you can. Yeah, but I think we're having some tech issues, but no problem. Nevertheless, I think that it was great to have Will here during this time. Thank Will for his participation here and to share some thoughts about what he thinks is going to play out and how Bitcoin is going to play out, how mining is going to be affected. Will, thank you very much for joining. In case you can hear me, feel free to jump in real quickly and say a goodbye for the people here. But I think it was good to have you. Good while it lasted. It was really, really interesting conversation to pick your brain and understand all the things related to ordinals, and that you believe that this is indeed potentially something that will be around here for this whole bull market, and we expect to see a whole ton of Bitcoin talk moving ahead. right? Guys, for everyone, will please let me know if you're here. Just like feel free to unmute yourself and jump in at any times. I definitely see we have some tech issues here, but and nevertheless, for the people on chat, let me know: are you guys already aware of runes, and would you guys like to have some live here covering runes, specifically talking about it? For the ones that don't know what runes is and maybe completely lost in the conversation, runes is basically a protocol and a token standard that can address some of the quote-unquote shortcomings of BRC20s. You guys know BRC20s, Ordinals, we are talking about, like, till now at least, users can only transfer one type of token to one destination with one inscription on Bitcoin, right? I think most of you guys already know that. Most of you guys are at least aware that it exists. But runes, however, allow users to kind of fan out different tokens in a single transaction that can transfer any number of rooms from any inputs to an output. So it's way similar to ERC20 if you guys think about it carefully. We're not there yet, but we are much closer to it. And a lot of people say that runes will be the big thing, will be the one thing that will potentially shape this quote-unquote initial Bitcoin ecosystem. And as I said to you guys on many weekly crypto forecasts here before, I do believe that you guys should be, if not jumping into that, you guys do definitely do your own research to at least understand what is going on. So I really, really hope that you guys can actually do it, because as I said, guys, this is evolution. When Ethereum started, like, we didn't have all the token standards that we have at the moment. Right now, a lot of interesting things have exactly have started to happen. So we are seeing different types of token standards. Bitcoin is evolving in the exact same way. It's being very interesting to see. And as I said, there are a couple pinned posts here that cover a ton of what's going on with Bitcoin. For example, if you check this Satoshi Club pinned post here, it's pretty interesting to see that BTC miners holdings hit a 12-year low ahead of this upcoming halving, and miners have been net sellers as they brace for a 50% cut in block rewards. As you guys know, that what the halving means is a 50% cut in block rewards, because you are now able to only mine half of the Bitcoin that you were able to before the halving. That what changes, the game changes for the miners as well. So I think that's the big thing that we need to take out. And also they mention, according to Into the Block, the introduction of runes could offer some short-term relief, according to them. I see that we have Pump back with us. Pump, let me know if you can hear me. Yeah, 100% loud and clear. This is all perfect.
Little technical difficulty there, but I'm on.
No worries, no worries. I think it's good that we have sorted it out. As I said before, pleasure to have you here on CMC Live. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Absolutely. People can follow me on CoinMarketCap. I didn't know that, and all of a sudden people started following me. So if people follow me, maybe I'll post more on CoinMarketCap. That sounds fun.
100%, 100%. We do have a couple of things here, and I was sharing this with Will earlier today. Like, we have some pinned posts here on the live, by the way, talking about just like the Federal Reserve, talking about the interest rates, potentially only lowering it in 2025. We're talking about LOP. You probably know LOP, big influencer, Bitcoin guy, talking about like the halving happened on 420 and how that would be potentially a big meme just for itself, but also Bitcoin miners. I want to have like your thoughts on all this, Pump. Let's start with like Bitcoin price, for example. I was talking to Will, like the lead analyst on chain for Glassnode. He was talking about the markets kind of needed this shakeout to get out weaker hands before we move higher. Do you agree with that? Is the bottom of the bull already here? Are we buying the top? What's going on with the Bitcoin price?
I think that whoever said there needed to be a shakeout, definitely true. You can see it obviously in open interest and leverage and all that stuff. Also psychologically, right? Whenever Bitcoin makes really big moves straight up, everyone gets a little euphoric. And so it's good to have a little bit of humility and remember that this asset is volatile, and volatility works in both ways. It can go up and it can go down very quickly. But if you look historically, the volatility is actually dampening. And so drawdowns are not as deep. And also that means, unfortunately, that on the way up, Bitcoin may not go up thousands of percent in bull markets, but a couple 100% is still quite attractive compared to traditional assets. And so I think this is just part of an asset maturing and becoming part of Wall Street. And so if you want mainstream adoption, you got to understand that it's not going to be the wild, wild west that it was, maybe 5-10 years ago.
Couldn't agree more with you. And I think to build on top of that, an answer, a question that I have for you is actually you're talking like Bitcoin is not the wild, wild west and crypto is not the same. Like a lot of things are actually getting built on top of Bitcoin. Like how do you see all those like L2, BVM, runes, ordinals, and all those narratives? Like I think when it first started, a lot of people thought it was going away like very quick, but it's here. It still is here. So do you feel like this is going to be here for longer? This will be kind of one of the faces of this bull run?
Yeah, look, I think that in these bull markets, what you end up finding is, Bitcoin goes up as do all the other assets. And so it's kind of an industry-wide trade. I think that what a lot of people try to figure out is how much is Bitcoin going to go up relative to everything else. And so at the moment, obviously Bitcoin is up, 40% or so to start the year. It's up over 100% over the last year. And if you zoom out further and further, the numbers just get larger. What I think is really interesting is if you compare that to, let's say, gold, right? Many people think Bitcoin is kind of digital gold. Gold, kind of in the analog version, is only up about 10, 11% in the last 5 years. Why is that important? Well, if gold has only gone up 11% in the last 5 years, that means that people who have held gold have actually lost purchasing power because inflation and the devaluation of the currency has been so severe. And so now all of a sudden what we're actually seeing is that the narrative around gold being a great store of value is being destroyed by the data. And Bitcoin is kind of standing alone and saying, hey, this is the best way to protect your purchasing power over long periods of time. And so that narrative is really strong. You can see why Wall Street is kind of pouring in. But also Wall Street, the debt markets are bigger than the equity markets. They're going to want yield. They're going to look at staking. They're going to look at a bunch of these other use cases across the industry. And so I don't think it's necessarily one narrative or one asset or kind of one, face of the industry that's going to end up getting, kind of winner take all. I do think that there's going to be a lot of diversity across the entire ecosystem.
Yeah, 100%. It's just interesting to see, as I was talking to people here, even if you're not involved, you need to understand what's going on in Bitcoin because there is a lot going on there. You need to at least have a feel for what's going on. And I want to ask you also, because we have seen like reports from Cointelegraph and a lot of others talking about like when halving comes, Bitcoin mining prices actually go up. Like the cost to mine a Bitcoin actually goes up a ton. And because of that, we may see potentially in the future, not now necessarily, but in the future, a couple of miners running out of business, but it also becomes, very profitable for the ones that stay in the business. Like, how do you see the mining activity being impacted by the halving? I know it happens every single cycle, but it seems like also every single cycle we have more eyes looking into those things. So I want to have your perspective on this as well.
Yeah, look, I think that it is probably not going to change nearly as much as people think. The miners, there are some people who may make some different decisions if they've got really expensive power, for example. They might have to shut off, or if they've miscalculated their kind of working capital needs. But overall, I think miners, they know the halving is coming. They're paying attention to it. They prepared for it. And so when Bitcoin is going up is usually not the time when miners are under pressure. It is on the other side of a bull market when there's a drawdown. Now, what we don't know is how big those drawdowns will be in the future. Will they still be 70, 80%, or will they be more muted? It's unclear, but that's really when miners kind of feel the pain, and some portion of them have to shut down.
It's just great to see all of that happening in history unfolding in front of our eyes. I think one more halving for the people that are here, more than one cycle is like, and halving is kind of like a birthday for you as well. You need to celebrate that a little bit. I don't know if you do that, Bump, but we tried also to like here, at least on where I live, we try to get the people that work in crypto or that are involved in crypto in some kind of way to get along on the halving day and just like to eat something, maybe celebrate, etc. So another thing that I have to ask you is actually your expectations for this bull run as a whole. Like I've asked you in the beginning if you have seen the top, like what's going on, but just like thinking of the whole bull run, on a more, let's say, overall type of view. Like not just necessarily Bitcoin, but Bitcoin has a focus of it because it's the king crypto, is what drives the market. Like, what are your expectations? Do you think that we're potentially even correcting more? Do you think there is a lot of upside still? Like, what are your talks from the people that you talk to? And also, I do know you're a Wall Street guy. You're close to the ETF guys as well that have impacted the market by a ton. So how do you feel that all of that plays a role into all this Bitcoin craziness?
Yeah, I think that Bitcoin definitely still has upside left in it. The question is just how much, and that's nearly impossible to predict. But from my experience, whenever you have an asset that has constant demand or increasing demand, and then you cut the supply by half in terms of the daily incoming supply, you are going to get a repricing of the asset. Now, is that repricing 20% higher or 200% higher? That's the $1 trillion question. So let's see what happens.
100% pump. And I think that everything that you shared, and it's also what we have shared here before, is just like a class for people that are here listening, and more than 3,200 people listening to us at this very moment. So make sure to take notes on everything that has been shared here. Pump, I'd like to thank you very much for your participation here. I do know that your time is short and you cannot stick for long, but any final words for the people that are here, maybe experiencing their first halving or maybe their second, like any interesting insights for people that they should live this life with that stick on their head?
I think that, it's a long journey. There's lots of volatility along the way, but those who can get educated, who understand risk, who can be long-term oriented, and can kind of pursue all of the ethos of Bitcoin and crypto tend to do okay. And so my advice to people would just be remain long-term oriented. Don't get too high in the good times. Don't get too low in the bad times. Ride the waves, and you'll get where you're trying to go.
That's it. I think that's the best advice that you can give. Not financial advice, but definitely life type of advice here shared by Pump Pump. Thank you very much for joining today. I think this is a good way for us to celebrate with you guys that are listening also this Bitcoin halving. As I said, for everyone that didn't catch up with all the live, make sure to tune back to it, coinmarketcap.com/community/lives. You can see all the previous content that we have here, a lot of interesting things. Make sure to know everything about it. And I see you guys here next Monday for our weekly crypto forecast, where we forecast all the things in the crypto week. Thank you every single one that have tuned in. More than 3K people still. Thank you very much. And I see you here very soon. Make sure to keep safe out there and keep hodling. See you, Pump. Thanks for joining. Bye, everyone.
Everyone go follow me so that I can post more on CoinMarketCap.
Please do it, as you guys seen.
We'll do it again.
100% looking forward to you. Thanks for participation, Pump. And make sure to follow him. For the ones that are not following, there's a pop-up now. You can follow him directly here. See you guys here on Monday. Make sure to have a great weekend, great halving. See you guys. Bye-bye.